Welcome, everybody, to another episode in our ongoing series called HomeKirtan and Chat. And today, I'm very pleased to welcome our guest today, Siri Sadhana Kaur from UK. She is a Kirtan musician, and she's a composer, a songwriter, mantra dance instructor, teacher trainer in Kundalini Yoga training. And we're going to get into speaking with Siri Sadhana about her music and about her life and what's going on with her today. But first, we're going to have some music. So we're so delighted to have you, Siri Sadhana. So I understand you're going to share the Shabad Dandan Ramdas Guru, which is certainly a wonderful choice for this time of year as we're celebrating the birthday of Guru Ramdas. So please take it away. And accompanying Siri Sadhana today is Adi Priyakar on violin. Siri Sadhana, just to let you know, it's very live.
It's very live.
Yeah, that's better.
Great.
While we're waiting, just to let people know, as you arrive, if you would let us know where you're logged in from, put it in the comments section. That'd be great. And if you have any questions at any point during the program for Siri Sadhana Kaur, please go ahead and put them in the comments. Thank you.
netur, sevia balcar setur, parutaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dinisiriatine suvaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dinisiriatine suvaria. Ladlugam kromo marcadetu savavaria. Danasu tere tanne sache tere pasu karia. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dinisiriatine suvaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dinisiriatine suvaria. Nanakatulena tohe, Guru Ramaratu Vicharya, Guru Dittama Sandarya, Guru Dittata Mansadarya. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dinisiriatine suvaria. Gure hove karmat abasirjanare dariya. Sikyate sangate parabrahmakar namaskariya. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Dinisiriatine suvaria. Dandaniranda sugur, dinisiriatine suvaria. Tantaniranda Sugur Jinisiriatinisvaria Jinisiriatinisvaria Atala todo tu tere antna parvaria dinto sevya paukar se tu pat utaria dan dan nidam dasukur dinesiriatinis varia dan dan nidam dasukur dinesiriatinis varia dinesiriatinis varia dan dan nidam dasukur dinesiriatinis varia dan dan nidam dasukur dinesiriatinis varia dinesiriatinis varia.
To paraphrase a comment in the comment section, wow, Waheguru. That was beautiful, both of you, Siri Sadhana and Adipriya. Thank you so much. And welcome to those of you who have been tuning in while the music's been going on. Harpal Kaur, Deva Hardeep, Deborah, Marinella, and Jaskaran Harbhajan, Blanca, so many others from all over, from Finland, from Canada, from Spain, around the US. So, yeah, we have a very nice representation of people who have come to get to know you a little bit, Siri Sadhana. So let's talk a bit about you. I went to your website, and you and I have met several times, but you know you don't get all the background right away. It takes a while. So I went to your website and went through that, looking for information, and it sort of is very good from about age 17 onward. But I want to ask you, what was your early childhood like musically? Did you have music in your family?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I have early memories of my father, who I remember he was he liked to have a laugh. He was from Liverpool, so he was a Scouser, and he had that kind of sense of humour, and he loved to dance and sing, and I remember that about him. I didn't grow up with him for a large part of my life, but those early memories, I remember, that joyful entertainer in him. So I think somewhere in me, in my psyche, I inhabited that. And my mother used to play Elvis records. She was an Elvis Presley fan. So I think Elvis and Buddy Holly was my dad's favourite, I think. I remember him singing Buddy Holly songs to me. And so I guess that was the early beginnings. And no, not really. Although, when you go to school, there's always events that you go to church at Christmas and
Yeah.
Easter. And
When did you start playing guitar?
oh, well, you know, I don't ever really feel like I started playing guitar. I bought a guitar when I was 19, and I remember I booked a lesson with a man in Brixton, and I met up for a lesson, and it was all ever so technical, and I had one lesson with him, and I learned, you know, the three chord wonder,
Yeah.
and used to sing along with a bit of Tracy Chapman. I think I learned a Tracy Chapman song, and I learnt a Bob Marley song. So they were my sort of party tricks.
Yeah. Good place to
so-
start.
Yeah, wonderful place to start. And what I used to love to do, I was in the theatre. I trained as an actress, and so
One would never know that.
no, really. I got to know a lot of great musicians along the way. You know, artists are creative, and I would always put myself alongside some great guitarists. So whenever I was doing my chords, I always thought I sounded better than I did.
That's a trick that we all can learn from. Yes, exactly.
And I still do that now. I play with a wonderful guitarist, Matt, and he's a really whiz kid on the guitar, and I love playing with him because, yeah, he makes it sound so good, and he is so good. He's so talented. Yeah. So yeah.
let's go a little further forward. So
Okay.
you know, you were in Paris. You were studying drama, and
Yeah.
and at what point did spirituality, did meditation, yoga, any of those things arrive into your life?
Well, actually, they came a lot earlier, really. Well, alongside my theatre, I would say. I found Tai Chi when I was 17, and I'd started studying theatre in London, in central London, and doing as many courses as I could. And I found this Tai Chi teacher who was originally an opera singer, and she really brought a lot of creativity to the art. And I did that for 18 years, actually. That was my practice. It was a really beautiful practice, and I did a very slow, healing, creative version. So that was kind of my journey into spirituality, and I used to do a lot of workshops around that with my Tai Chi teacher, and so that I would say that was my entry point. And all alongside my theatre career, I did a lot of physical theatre, so I was always interested in the creativity and the body and the geometry of how we move through space and how that works with our creative self, and that discovery. So Tai Chi was always part of that for me, and it really supported me. It calmed me because it was so slow, and you know, I was quite fiery, and yeah.
I think
so
we
it
can tell
supported
that.
me.
Yes. Yes, I also studied Tai Chi before yoga and meditation.
Ah,
And I remember
yeah.
my old Chinese man who was teaching, he said, when you are moving in the Tai Chi movement, the energy is still. But when you then, every morning you get up and you be still, then the energy moves. I always
Yeah.
liked that, you know, really, that led me into a different understanding of yoga and music even.
Yes.
So when did you make that connection between expressing spirituality or feeling a connection to spirituality through music?
Well, I guess the connection came a lot later. They were always kind of, although my Tai Chi, the movement was always alongside the theatre practice, and everything I did always supported performance. But it really was, it was my first Kundalini class. It was suddenly, you know, you get blown open, don't you, when you do Kundalini? Well, maybe not everyone does. I did, and I know a lot of people do. And doing the mantras in a class, and really feeling that vibration of sound. And also I got the experience of connecting many different worlds, actually. So I had been singing a lot along the way. I'd done musicals, and I did a lot of busking in Paris. So I had this love of expression of the voice and also with movement. And it all came together in the Kundalini class, and it was like, where have you been all my life? You know, it really kind of awakened that ancient knowing and truth in that moment, and particularly the chanting. It really awoke something, or I remembered something in that moment. And so it wasn't long actually from when I was on my training. You know, I was deeply inspired by one of the mentees who was an intern on our training. He was called Carlos, and he was fabulous. He used to play the guitar, and of course he invited us at sadhana. He said, anyone plays an instrument, come on down, just play one mantra. And I thought, oh well, I could do a bit of Bob Marley. I must be able to do something with that. And so yeah, that was it really from that point. And it was beautiful because I picked up the guitar again. I put it down because I was never really good enough to accompany myself. When I was busking and singing, I always got good guitarists to play with. So really, yeah, it was Kundalini yoga, my first class, and then the training, and then from then on in, that was it. I was at every sadhana, and I was playing at every sadhana because in those days there weren't many musicians. So, you know, I had a job. I had something to do. I could offer service, and of course I loved it. It was beautiful for my creativity to be put in service. And
so right away you began to come up with tunes for mantras?
Well, yes, and that's the beauty, isn't it, about playing mantras, because it can be one chord.
It can be as simple as you want. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And so yeah, I just jumped in, and it was really Carlos's invitation. You know, I'll bless him forever for that. He was such an inspiration. He could play guitar pretty well, actually, and but yeah, his invitation and inspiration for sure got me playing. And
I think we all have our Carloses in life. You know, people who invite
and we
us
need
in,
them.
and we need them, and we need to be them as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, send the elevator back down, as I think I've heard it said before, isn't it? Yeah, that we
maybe no up and down. It's just invite people.
Horizontal elevator. Then. Okay.
So, you know, you've invited your daughter into the music experience, Aloka, and she has a lovely voice, and she's recorded with you many times and performed with you.
Yes.
Do you think that's where she is headed as well? Does music excite her? Is she going to be on this track?
It certainly did when she was little, and she's at music college now. So, and you know, I guess through life we go through the different cycles and we go through the phases, and she's very much at a time where she's finding her identity and her peers, and so things change. When she was little, you know, it was so easy. We just used to get up and dance and sing all the time, and we were always doing harmonies. And, you know, I used to run a lot of community choirs, you know, a cappella, and Aloka was always my main singer. I could rely on her for a harmony. She always had this innate ability, you know.
That's great.
Yeah, we always sang together, and so, yeah, it was beautiful. It was always... And then as she grew, she had a confidence. She just could get on stage, and it was just natural. But yeah, let's see. I mean, yeah, if it's for her, I guess she'll find it in her own way, and that's what she's doing now. She's discovering, and or she has been for a while, you know, pop music, and finding her style and working with beats and working with other musicians. So. Yeah, let's see.
Let's talk about other music, other influences. What do you you mentioned Bob Marley? You know, what are your early influences? Do you think that even today may continue to inspire you?
Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly. Well, you know, that's unconscious, but I think it's there. A bit later on, you know, I remember you know, on a Sunday night, I used to, with my sister, listen to Top of the Pops, and every Sunday it was a countdown to who was number one. And I remember dancing and singing, and at a stage I got very much into David Bowie. I loved David Bowie, you know, Aladdin Sane and Hunky Dory. I just found him so creative and inspiring. And then, of course, a little bit later, Michael Jackson Thriller album came out, and I just had this thing when I heard records, I would learn them by heart, and I would learn harmonies. I'd just listen and sing harmonies along with the singer. So other people I listened to, Annie Lennox was big at the time, and when I got into my teenage years, and Sade, and I remember listening to Randy Crawford, and learning. And then, of course, Tina Turner came. Wow, she blew my mind. Watching Tina Turner perform was so inspirational. You know, she has that sort of raw, dynamic, feminine, everything wholeness. Yeah, so I remember her album was a best friend to me when she came. You know, she came back with that album. What was it? Private Dancer. So yeah, I used to love singing along to Tina Turner, my inspiration. And then a little bit of sort of R&B and Motown, because I love to dance as well. So a lot of those kind of influences. A little bit later, when I got older, I remember listening to Frank Zappa and Janis Joplin. You know, I went on quite a journey with my music.
Yeah, very broad.
Yeah, very broad, very broad. And blues and jazz I ended up singing quite a lot of when I remember busking on the metro in Paris. And yeah, we used to do a lot of blues and jazz. So that came later.
For people who have never had the experience of being in the metro system or in the underground in London and hearing a busker, a musician, performing, you know, somewhere down the tunnels, it's such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And the resonance of the sound, it's like you don't need a microphone. It just carries. It's
beautiful,
amazing.
isn't it? Yeah, go in any tunnel and you'll sound good.
Yeah, pretty much.
It wasn't so much. I used to go on the carriages. That was always the best income, because me and my friend were sort of funding ourselves through theatre school. So we used to go from carriage to carriage, and I had a shaker egg. And so that just sort of held the rhythm. And then we did a cappella harmony, so we didn't get the great resonance there.
No, but you have a sort of confined audience. They can't get off till the next stop.
But I always appreciate that. Even now, you know, when I get on the tube and you hear a group get on, the whole atmosphere changes as soon as music comes. I mean, what else were you doing before then? Looking at your phone, looking down, you know. For me, I always appreciate it, personally. I know other people feel a bit frustrated by it, but a bit of music.
The newspaper up in front of your face, so you don't have to look at anyone, make eye contact. Yeah, I know, exactly.
Yeah. And, but there's something so beautiful about music, you know. It's like when we're children, we get moved by it, don't we? We don't have those huge senses that prevent us from, you hear music, you dance. That's what we do as kids. You hear music, you sing, you make sound, you go along, you play, you become it.
Let me take a little, now that you've mentioned dance, let me just take a little diversion into asking you about mantra dance.
Yeah.
And how that integrates with what you do.
Yeah, so mantra dance, I was always an innate dancer. Similarly, it was nothing I ever particularly trained in, although the theatre that I did was working with the body. It really wasn't until a lot later I trained in something called Nia dance, which is barefoot, and it fuses taekwondo, Duncan dance, yoga, tai chi, and it really awoke again something in me that loved to dance. I've always had a passion for African dance. that's something I've done regularly throughout my life, and but just on a weekly basis as my feeding and nourishment. But I actually trained in near dance, and it was from that point that I fused my worlds. I was making the CDs and I was playing regularly with sadhana and doing kirtan, and I'm always aware of this part in me that wants to move with the music. The body is the instrument. And so I felt like bringing the mantra and the dance together was a way that I could express myself more fully, and it just feels like a powerful thing to put a mantra into motion in a sacred way. And that's not just kind of any dance, it's really bringing consciousness, and the mantra amplifies whatever movement that you do. It just accentuates it. So it's working with this sense of vibration. The ancients knew that that the world is sound. Plato said it's the basis of the universe. We vibrate. And so in meditation, when we chant in sadhana, we sit still and we allow that inner dance. And so the mantra dance became that expression of that inner dance. Mm-hmm. So finding a sacred way to move the body. So a lot of the time with mantra dance, it can be spontaneous and just making space for the sound to move through you and allow that to move.
And you integrate that in teacher training programs as well?
I'll always get people up to dance because it's great to dance. I mean, we have it in Kundalini Yoga, don't we, as warm-ups and in some of the Kriyas. So, yes, I often do get people to dance, and some people deeply appreciate it. Some people get deeply triggered by it. And, on goes the journey, hey?
On goes the journey, yes.
Yeah. But, I think it's a lovely thing to do. I think it brings that joy and play that lives in us from the time we're born.
Speaking of joy and speaking of Africa, I want to touch on your time studying and working with. Let me get this right. Sorry, I have to look. Sobonfu Some.
Yeah.
And her teaching and her activist work. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, so I met Sobonfu in my, when was that? 98, I think I began working with her and her husband at the time, Malidoma Some, who's a very well-known teacher, indigenous teachers, and they come from the Dagara tribe in West Africa, Burkina Faso. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. And
I had to look it up where it was. I had not, wasn't familiar with it. So.
Yeah, well, and a lot of people aren't. And so it's just above Ghana, and Côte d'Ivoire, and Mali is at the side there. And I had the chance to visit their village, which was an incredible journey. So Sobonfu just became a very dear teacher, sister, mother, friend, and she became my daughter's godmother. So a lot of the work that I did with her was I learnt about ritual, about ancient African spiritual traditions. So we did a lot of chants, we did a lot of ceremony and coming together in community, and this sense of through the ceremony and ritual we got to witness each other in community. And one of Sobonfu's forte was grief rituals, which were incredibly powerful. So we'd go on journeys over weekends. I used to organise her in the UK for many years, and so we used to organise these big events, and we'd go to some place and we'd be grieving and crying and laughing and singing, and there was always drumming because we would always chant and drum, and we would kind of make a village together to hold space for the grief and for the process and the transformation. So we did many ceremonies over the years. We did welcoming ceremonies. We did lots of women's work. And it was deeply sacred and very of the earth, very in nature. You know, we would build pits in the earth and we'd be lying in the earth and connecting to the elements. And we'd go on for hours and hours. And it was deeply healing. I've never done such powerful work. I mean, I can liken them to some of the powerful rebirthing kriyas we do, which is very shamanic in their nature.
It's so un-British.
Yes, it is so un-British.
To get dirty, you know, to get down in the
Yes.
ground. Amazing.
Yeah, we'd have mud on our face and you'd have phlegm and all sorts going on. But, you know, to kind of go through that process with another human being is so... it's a privilege. It's like being a birth partner for another, you know. It's like being a doula at death. I mean, all of these journeys that we make in life are so powerful. And, you know, when we have these great teachers like Sabonfu, like Malidoma, like, you know, many of the teachers that we come across in our tradition also, you know, it's sacred and it's necessary and it enables us to really fully inhabit life. And Sabonfu Somi was a really deeply beautiful, authentic woman that was, very of the earth, very real. She's written several books and she has some recordings. And I feel, I can't say how blessed myself and my daughter were to, many of the ceremonies I did around birthing my daughter into the world were part of her tradition. And I learnt so much.
What a great gift.
Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you know, I hope in some ways I can, and I do share some of her work, and that would be my ongoing intention, is to keep up that alongside what we do.
How does all of that experience, which seems very deep, how does it inform your music?
I don't know.
Okay.
How does it inform? Well, I guess how you do anything is how you do everything. So, you know, it's like, it was interesting just thinking about before the interview and thinking about, my early beginnings with music, and just like Buddy Holly and Elvis is in there somewhere in my auric space.
Yeah.
I think this, the shamanic work and that therapeutic, deep process hopefully allows me to be more true and authentic in what I share. That would be my hope. That would be my aim, and to clear what I have to do, to heal what I have to do in this life, in order that I can share those gifts with others. And my hope would be that is received and felt in the music when I share and when I'm able to connect with my heart. And I would say, you know, that was one of the things from coming from the theatre world to coming into chanting. I think at the beginning I was performing still, you know, I was wearing a cloak in one sense. I'd learned a lens of how to perform, and then something really opened in me in my own process and healing along the way. And I know still now when I really sing from my heart, you know, I feel the stringed instrument of the heart, and then I know I'm taken in the moment. It's not about me, it's not about my personality, it's about something else. And I think we all as human beings have that potential and possibility to connect to that real, true, sacred, universal place. You know, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and so can I really allow the infinite to come through me? And that's what we ideally do as teachers, isn't it? We get out the way of the stuff that blocks us, that imprisons us, and then, you know, allow the flow of the infinite. And that's what's beautiful, and that's what's true, and that's what touches and heals us.
Well, I want to recognize that, you know, I can see, and I think we all see in this, even in this interview, that you have transcended the performer limitation, and stepped into a level of authenticity that moves people. You know, that when you are speaking today, when you are singing, that people get it, that you are authentically present, you know, and that's powerful in whomever we get to witness doing that in the moment. And the way you lead people in the music, it allows them to step into that, I think, as well. And that's the goal, you know, is
That is
invite
the biggest
people in.
Well, and I would say, you know, when I used to run community choirs, they were, you know, I'd say, you know, my daughter Aloka was always my main harmony part. I always could rely on her to hold her harmony, and it's such a beautiful thing to share harmony with people who so often, you know, most people who come, they say, I can't sing, I sing out of tune, and you go, okay, we'll just have a go. Do you want to have a go? Okay, come in, try it out. And once we get singing in community, singing, chanting, whatever it is, we come together in community, and, you know, you see it instantly in people, don't they? We come alive. And so I think, you know, it's interesting for me coming from that performance background, and now my love and passion is in sharing that we sing. And that's where the life happens, in the community, in the we consciousness, in the love. And we, you know, we so need this now, right? That we're doing this social distancing, and you go out and there's that fear in the eye, and then when you make a sound, there's an instant healing. You know, our grunts, our groans, our ums, our whatever is an instant healer in those. So when you can take that a step further and bring consciousness in, as we do through mantra and through Shabad, we just take it to another level. And that's so beautiful to be able to share that. And it's such a privilege to be able to guide a group in that way, and see them light up, literally light up. And I often used to see in my groups, you know, I'd have some people, they'd be really low, and, you know, I'd say often seemingly quite depressed, and by the end of the class, open, young, youthful, alive and bright. And that's the power of voice, that's the power of sound, and that's the power of us sharing. So, you know, this technology that we have in Kundalini Yoga, we get to do that. I mean, you know, it's not rocket science, but it flipping is.
It's as powerful as rocket science. Yeah, it's atomic. Exactly. Yeah. I also remember that first experience of doing sadhana in a group, and like spending the whole day sort of continuing to hold that energy resonating from the sound of the voices of a group of people chanting together. It's awesome. And now I notice it in so many traditions. Yeah. You know, you go and listen to Gregorian chant, and what may have sounded like, oh, well, that's kind of boring. But wait a minute, go a little deeper, step into it, feel the resonance, you know. And so I want to agree with you that sound is so powerful in transformation, human transformation. So I want to talk about some of your music before we get too far along here. You've got 8 recordings, 7 already released and 1 coming out in a few days.
Yes.
So let's just go through those really quickly. The first recording was Sacred Nectar in 2009. What did it fulfill your hope? You know, that was your first project. Were you nervous that it would be received? Did it manifest what you hoped to do?
I was just so happy that I could do it. I was just joyed that I could produce something, and it could be, somebody said to me, oh, we have takeaway Siri Sadhana now, because I used to always sing at sadhana, and now we've got Siri Sadhana to take away. So I was just, you know, completely happy and excited. I don't know what I expected it to do. I guess they always do what they're meant to do, don't they, the recordings, and they go where they're meant to go. And
way beyond what we expect.
Yeah.
So
And I was very well, I was very fortunate actually to work with Rob Lee, who's a genius musician and a genius producer. And I've worked with him many times. And back in my 20s, when I was doing cabaret stuff, we used to play a lot together. And so I reconnected with him, and that was really wonderful because
Destiny presents us with our partners along the way.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
And then in 2010, right away, another year and another recording, you did a children's album for the school. Was your daughter at the school?
Yeah, so my daughter was at the Waldorf Rudolf Steiner School in North London, and I loved some of the chants that they would do. In school, in Steiner, it's so about everything is through song to transition into the next activity, and my daughter loved to sing, so we both recorded this album, and we took all the beautiful songs from the classroom, and I got to record what because it's such an oral tradition. Each Steiner school will have its own sort of songs and ways of singing, and so I got to record the teachers, and then I put them all down, lots of different songs and celebrations and festivals, because that's another thing, they work very much with ceremony and ritual in Steiner.
That's wonderful. And then right away the next year, 2011, you came out with a sadhana CD, Song of Soul.
Yes.
Yeah. So everybody I know who's a musician in Kundalini Yoga tradition at some point has to release a sadhana CD.
It's on the bucket list.
We always put so much hope that it's going to be a huge hit, but there are already so many. It's hard to keep selling a lot of sadhana CDs, I find.
Well, it is, but what's so wonderful is the amount of sadhana CDs there are, and me and my colleague Adi Priya, we do 40-day sadhanas, and we don't always want to play every one, so we've got to listen to a lot of great musicians' versions, and it's
it
wonderful.
is great. This is what I tell people, is that there should not be any limitation on the musical style that is used with mantra, because if it doesn't speak to you, there is someone out there that it does. So just, then in 2013, you came out with Aloka's Grace.
Yes.
And it's sort of connected to your daughter, and maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, well, it just seemed right. She'd been singing on all of my recordings, actually, I wanted to acknowledge her. I wanted to acknowledge our duo in singing, and we did everything together. Aloka was at every sadhana. She was sleeping most of the time, so she got to sit in level 1, level 2, and level 3 actually. So she was always in the aura of the teachings, and so I wanted to acknowledge how much part of it she was, and so I called it Aloka's Grace, and again she sang on it. So
Oh, lovely. And then 2015, Awakening Heart.
Yeah. So by that time, Aloka was 12, so that was the first time she did her own track on that one. And
Did she write the melody or?
No, she sang. She came into the studio to record. So I'm trying to remember where she was in her school. She was in London at that time.
All right. And then 2 years later, in 2017, you got Ancient Keeper.
Yes.
It's an interesting name.
Well, it was after Sabonfu, because Sabonfu sadly died in that January that I brought the album out in 2017. And her name meant keeper of rituals. That was her destiny. That's what she brought forward in life, and she was such an important person in my life, And so the album Ancient Keeper, with her, that's what she was, and that's what she did, and that's what she'll always be. And so I wanted to dedicate that album to her.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
And then a year later, you did Kundalini Rise Transition.
Yeah, so that was an interesting. I did that with my colleague Lucy Keveney, who had a particular style she wanted to work in, and so it was interesting. My daughter Aloka was at Miri Piri in India at the time, and so we did some recording at Miri Piri. Actually, I don't know if you know Hargobind. He made up a sort of makeshift studio at Miri Piri.
Yeah, I
and
know him.
yeah, and he was fab. So Aloka sang a couple of tracks on that also, and it's the first time that I'd been given the full music, and then I was putting the mantras to the music. So that was quite interesting. I had to listen and see, well, where do the mantras fit in here?
And then to offer the second CD without the mantras, just the instrumental. That was interesting.
Yeah, and that was really Lucy's inspiration. She works a lot with sound herself and healing, and she wanted to make that offering, and very, very beautifully done.
There's a lot of people in the comments section sort of saying how much they appreciate you as a singer, that you inspire them. Here's one of the comments. It's so inspiring to hear your passion. Thank you for sharing. Can you tell us more about your latest album, which I think maybe she's referring to the one that's going to be released in a few days?
Yes, so that's Rise and Shine. So that comes to my 8th album, and yes, this has been my longest one. It's quite interesting with each project, with each album. They have their own life. It's a bit, I guess, like any project really. It's like a gestation, a birthing.
It
or
seems
something.
like you've been rising and shining a long time, though.
Thank you, Pritpal.
Of course.
I don't think I felt like that when I was young. It's interesting you say that, because I had a friend the other day saying to me about the dimmer switch, and she kept telling me that I kept putting the dimmer switch down on myself.
I think you're on 11 already,
So Rise and Shine, it was 2 years in the making. I began working with the producer Ram Dass in San Francisco.
Great guy.
Yeah, I believe you know, yeah.
Oh yeah, he produced my last CD.
Ah, lovely. And anyway, we worked together. We did some recording, and then I've ended up finishing it with Jag in London, and I was so excited to be able to work with a kora player on one of the tracks.
Beautiful.
Yeah, really, that was one of my kind of aims. And I had a whole range of different musicians through working with Jag. He brought in lots of musicians, as did Ram Dass. I think both of his parents recorded on the CD.
You always get both parents when you work with Ram Dass. It's great. It's great.
Yes.
It's like hiring an orchestra.
Yes, exactly. So, and then again, Aloka sang, she's featuring on the album. She sings 2 tracks, and one of the ones over the last couple of CDs, actually, with Ancient Keeper and this one, I wrote tracks that were just sort of inspiring songs to me, and the song that I wrote, Echoes, that Aloka sings on, she sings it very beautifully. I wrote at the time when I was in Ireland. I was teaching at a festival in Ireland, and one day I just walked to the beach, and I had this kind of ancestral connecting moment where I had this kind of realization that my ancestors were Celts, and I was looking in the direction of the Isle of Man, where one of my set of family come from, the Scouse lot. And then, the other side, I was standing on this on the ocean edge in Ireland, and so my whole other side of the family, the Ryans, come from Ireland. So yeah, I was inspired to write this song. Anyway, it came to me that day, and so Aloka sings
terrific.
that. Yeah.
Well, listen, we haven't got much time. We'd love to have a little music from the upcoming CD, Rise and Shine. So
Yes.
if you'd like to set yourself up, I'll just talk while you're doing that.
Okay, thanks.
So as Siri Sadhana is setting up, I want to just let all of you who are with us today know about the program next week. So it's a new program called Roots of Sikh Dharma, and we'll be presenting an overview about Sikh Dharma. So if you are new to Sikh Dharma, sorry, I just muted them for a minute. So if you're new and would like to know more about Sikh Dharma, this will be a perfect session for you next week. But it also is an introduction, and then a month later we'll do a follow-up, continuing the Roots of Sikh Dharma series, and we'll start going into some history, and then later we'll be talking about understanding philosophy, the teachings, and the practices of Sikh Dharma. So I hope you can make it for next week. And in the meantime, let's listen to Siri Sadhana Kaur and Adi Priya Kaur, who are going to play for us now.
I am thine in myself. Vaheguru. Hami ham, tumi tum. Guru.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
So,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Fateh. Thank you, Siri Sadhana, so much. It was a beautiful program. Thank you for your time. Thanks to everybody who joined us. We'll see you next week for the Roots of Sikh Dharma program. In the meantime, please stay healthy, stay safe, be well, be blessed. Satnam, everybody. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Sanam,
Waheguru
bless
Ji
you,
Ki Fateh.
Prabhupada. Thank you for your seva.
Satnam.
Waheguru Ji Ki